Tonight you drift softly through the calm story of Winnie the Pooh, settling into the warm, unhurried world of one small golden bear and the worn and tender things that made him real. Before the story begins, let yourself sink a little deeper into wherever you are resting now. Feel the weight of your body, heavy and still, the way a bear might settle into a favorite chair, round and content, needing nothing more. The 100 Acre Wood is very quiet tonight, warm with the color of honey, soft with the smell of dry wood and long grass. Breathe in slowly, filling yourself with that warmth. Breathe out slowly, letting it all go. You have nothing to carry now. Your hands are still. Your shoulders have come down a little. Breathe in once more, slow and easy. Breathe out and feel yourself sink just a little further, cradled and unhurried, the way old moss settles quietly over roots. The wood is peaceful. The light is low and amber. Your eyes grow heavy, soft, willing to close. Let them close now, or let them rest half open and easy. Either way, you are held and cradled. You are weightless and still. There is nothing left to do but rest and listen and drift. The bear began as fabric. It began as the long, fine hair of an Angora goat, clipped gently from a warm animal living somewhere in a cooler part of the world. That hair was gathered and spun and woven slowly and carefully into a soft plush called mohair. The mohair was dyed a color somewhere between gold and biscuit, warm and a little faded already, the color of late afternoon light falling between trees in a quiet wood where nothing hurries and nothing needs to. You might imagine a small workshop in London on a street called Acton Lane. The company there was called J.K. Farnell, and the room was filled with the quiet sounds of scissors on cloth and thread being drawn through fabric. Pieces of the golden mohair were marked and cut by careful hands, shaped from flat cloth into the curves and rounds that would become a body. There were pieces for the head, full and round, and pieces for the body, a soft barrel shape, and 4 pieces for the limbs, short and plump, made from the very beginning for being held. The ears came from 2 small circles of that same golden fabric, folded once at the base and stitched gently into shape. They were sewn onto either side of the round head by hand, each one tucked carefully into its place. They were meant to sit evenly, but hands are human, and fabric is soft. And even at the very beginning, there was something ever so slightly uneven about them. One sat just a touch higher than the other. One tilted forward with a mild, open attentiveness. The other rested back in a kind of quiet ease. Together, they gave the bear a look of gentle, permanent wonder, as if something small and interesting had just passed by somewhere nearby. Inside, the bear was filled with wood wool. This was not sawdust and not shavings, but something finer still. Long, pale ribbons of wood, light and soft, curling slightly, packed just tightly enough to hold the bear's shape, while still yielding warmly under a child's hands. The wood wool gave the body its particular roundness, its soft give, its feeling of fullness and gentle weight, the feeling of something made entirely for being held. The eyes were small and round and made of dark glass. They were sewn firmly in place, one on either side of the face. They did not move. They did not blink. They held a steady, quiet warmth that was entirely their own. Two small dark points set in all that gold. The seams were stitched in even rows, each stitch close and firm, holding the bear together along all its edges. They ran along the back and under the arms and around the base of the head, small and regular, the kind of stitching a careful pair of hands makes when there is no hurry, when the work matters, and the afternoon is long and unhurried. The bear was finished in the autumn of 1921 and given to a small boy named Christopher Robin Milne. He carried the bear with him everywhere. He held it under his arm going down the stairs in the morning, brought it to the garden and the nursery, and back to bed at night. He spoke to it softly, as children do, and the bear received all of this with a steady, uncomplaining warmth, always patient, always present, always exactly where it had been left. The mohair began to change. Under the gentle press of small hands, the fine fibers shifted and settled over the years. The gold grew paler in some places, along the nose and the tops of the feet, and richer in others, in the creases behind the ears where fingers rapped most often. The fur grew softer in the places that were touched most, the long fibers lying down together quietly, the way grass grows flat and still along a path that many feet have loved. The seams began to yield. A stitch would pull loose here. A thread would loosen there, not suddenly, not all at once, but slowly and gently, the way a letter fades in long sunlight, the way a song grows quieter toward its end. The edges of the bear's familiar shape softened, the lines between one piece of fabric and the next blurring into something rounder and less precise. The ears shifted most of all. Already gently uneven from the beginning, they were petted and pressed and held and released so many times over so many years that their slight crookedness became entirely their own. One ear sat a little forward, one rested back. One caught the light, one leaned into shadow. Together, gave the bear a particular, unmistakable expression, open and wondering, and deeply, quietly at ease with the world. The fraying was gentle throughout. It did not undo the bear. It deepened him, the way a familiar chair grows softer with the years, the way a well-loved book loses the stiffness of its spine. Each loosened stitch was a small, quiet record of something good. A morning carried downstairs, an afternoon in the garden, a long night sleeping close beside a child who loved him. The bear rested in all of this with perfect stillness, his lopsided ears catching whatever soft light came near, his glass eyes holding their patient, dark warmth. He was made of goat hair and pale wood ribbons and careful stitching, shaped by a pair of hands on a London morning. And he became something more than that, slowly and without effort, simply by being carried. Ernest Howard Shepard kept a pencil close at hand, the same kind he had used for years, soft enough to smudge gently at the edges of a drawn line, firm enough to hold a curve without breaking. He sharpened it carefully. The shavings curled away in pale spirals and settled on his work table. He would lift the pencil and pause, simply looking at the blank paper, letting whatever warmth he was feeling settle into his hand before he began. You can imagine the studio around him. A quiet room, not large. Morning light coming in from a window to one side, falling across the paper at a low angle, so that every slight pressure of the pencil cast its own small shadow. The paper was cream-colored, not quite white, the kind that feels slightly warm to the touch. Outside, there might have been birds. Inside, there was only the faint, whispering sound of graphite moving across the grain of the page. He had visited A. Milne's home in the country, a house called Cochford Farm in Sussex, to see the toys in person. Christopher Robin Milne kept them in his nursery, arranged without any particular order, just resting where they had been set down, the way objects rest when they belong somewhere and have no desire to be anywhere else. Shepard sat and looked at them for a long time. He made small sketches in a notebook, quick observations, a note about the slope of an ear, the particular softness of a limb. He was not trying to copy them exactly. He was trying to understand them, to find in his own hand the same quality of care that had shaped them over many years of being carried and set down and carried again. What he understood, you might sense now in the drawings themselves. There is a roundness to the bear that goes beyond its shape. The lines that describe Pooh's belly curve with a kind of patience, as though the pencil slowed down there, as though it wanted to linger on that soft swell before moving on. ears sit slightly uneven on the head, not from any carelessness, but because Shepherd saw that unevenness in the real bear and chose to keep it. He knew that unevenness was the truth. A loved toy is never quite symmetrical. It settles into its own shape over time, gently, gradually, the way soft things do when they have been trusted. The graphite itself has a quality that suited this subject perfectly. It is neither bright nor dull. It holds light without demanding it. A pencil line can be barely there, a whisper on the page, or it can be pressed deeper, a darker murmur, and Shepherd used both with great delicacy. The outlines of Pooh are drawn with a light, continuous stroke, almost floating above the paper. Where there is shadow under a chin or along one side of a leg, the lines are softer, laid in with short parallel strokes that blur at their edges, suggesting depth without declaring it. The whole drawing seems to breathe very gently. It is worth considering what it means to draw something soft with a hard tool. A pencil is wood and graphite, rigid in the hand. Paper has texture, a slight resistance, and yet from that small friction, something tender comes. Shepherd pressed the pencil to the paper, and what emerged was the suggestion of stuffing, of cotton or kapok or sawdust packed gently inside old fabric, of a seam that gives a little when touched. You cannot hold a drawing, but you can feel it somehow with your eyes. He drew the paws with particular care. They are rounded at the ends, not quite hands, not quite anything you could name precisely, and that ambiguity is part of their warmth. They reach outward in some pictures, open and unhurried, receiving the world without any urgency. In others, they hang softly at the sides, at rest, belonging simply to a creature that has nothing it needs to carry just now. Shepherd knew that rest was not blankness. Rest was its own kind of fullness. He drew the background world that held the bear with the same pencil, the same patient hand. Trees curved gently at their tops. Paths wind through the wood without any sharp turns. The lines describing grass or low undergrowth are short and soft, nothing rigid or insistent about them. The whole landscape has the quality of something remembered from childhood, slightly simplified, slightly warmer than a real forest. The way remembered places glow when the memory is a good one. He sometimes returned to the same image more than once, making small adjustments that few readers would ever notice. A horizon line moved slightly lower. A shadow deepened just a little along the ground beneath a tree. These were not corrections of mistakes. They were refinements of feeling. He was trying to find the exact degree of quietness that each picture needed, and he worked at it slowly, way you might adjust the light in a room at evening, moving it just so until everything settles into the right warmth. The finished drawings were reproduced in the books as printed black lines on white pages. Something was lost in that translation, as something always is. The slight variations in the original pencil marks, the places where the stroke was lighter because the hand was lifting, the places where it was darker because the hand had settled. These became more uniform in print, smoothed by the machinery of reproduction. And yet, even so, something of Shepard's original pressure survived. The lines retained their gentleness. The bear retained its softness. The woods retained their hush. There is one more thing worth noticing, which is the way Shepard drew Pooh's expression. The face is simple, nearly minimal. Two small eyes set close together. A curved line for a mouth that does not quite smile, but rests just at the edge of one. The nose is a small oval, nothing more. It is remarkable how much warmth can be gathered into so few marks. Shepard understood that a face does not need to be complex to be kind. A child knows this too. A child will love a face made from 2 buttons and a thread without any hesitation, without needing to be taught. You are resting now, and the drawings rest too, held inside books that have their own kind of stillness. Somewhere in the quiet world of paper and ink, Shepard worked at his table in the morning light, and what he made has lasted, carrying the weight of something that was loved long before he drew it, and has gone on being loved in the shapes his pencil left behind. The pencil moved, and the bear appeared, already familiar, already settled into its own gentle existence, as though it had simply been waiting to be seen. The trees of the 100 Acre Wood are not one solid thing, but many small marks, laid close and patient beside each other. Each trunk is a gathering of thin strokes, drawn side by side until they convince the eye that bark is truly there. You can see this if you look slowly enough. The lines do not pretend to be bark. They simply suggest it, and ink on paper can suggest almost anything when a careful hand is guiding it, when the person holding the pen is thinking about something real and dear. Ernest Shepard drew those trees from memory and from feeling. He had walked through real woods, real English countryside, where oaks grew wide and unhurried, and the bracken lay soft underfoot. He carried some of that with him to his drawing table in the quiet hours of a working morning. He carried the sense of it, the stillness of a stand of trees in cool morning light, the particular hush that falls when you are inside a wood rather than looking at it from the outside. And then he set his nib to the paper, and the trees came out of that memory, mark by careful mark. The nib he used was very small. It was the kind of tool that rewards patience and penalizes hurry. Press too hard and the ink floods. Hold too lightly and the line barely shows. There is a middle place, a steady and moderate pressure, where the line comes out clean and fine and sure. And that is where Shepard worked for most of his career. You can feel that steadiness in the finished images, even now. The trunks are composed, self-possessed, upright. Each one takes up its quiet space on the page and asks for nothing more than that space. What you see when you look at those trees is not continuous solid mass. It is intervals. It is dark stroke, then a breath of white paper, then another stroke, then another breath. The white space between the lines does not disappear into the background. It stays part of the picture. It becomes the light falling on the bark, or the natural roundness of a trunk, or simply the air resting in the grain of the drawing itself. The trees breathe through their white gaps, and that breathing is what keeps them from being merely decorative. They feel inhabited. They feel like the trees of a place that already existed before anyone thought to draw it. The roots matter too. Shepard gave some of the older trees wide, splayed roots, lines that curved gently downward and spread beneath the trunk like open fingers pressed flat against the ground. These roots do not cling or grip. They settle. They are comfortable in the earth, having been there a long time, and the lines that form them are a little thicker, a little more deliberate, as if the pen itself had slowed to suggest something old and sure and established higher up where the branches begin. The lines thin out and lift. A branch is drawn with a single curving stroke, or two strokes that travel side by side for a while, and then ease apart. The branches of an oak in the 100 Acre Wood are not quite symmetrical. They do not mirror each other neatly from left to right. They grow as real branches grow, each one following whatever light was available to it, each one finding its own particular angle of rising. Shepard understood this, and he did not correct it into tidiness. He let the branches do what branches do, which is to say, he trusted the actual shape of growing things. The leaves in many of these illustrations are suggested rather than fully stated. A cluster of hatching marks near the top of a branch, some small overlapping curves, a few loose teardrop shapes gathered into a broad canopy. These marks are not detailed enough to name any single species of leaf. They are the idea of leaf, the idea of high green fullness overhead on a calm afternoon. And that gentle imprecision is a kindness to whoever is looking. It asks nothing of you. It invites your imagination to come the rest of the way, to soften the edges and complete the canopy in whatever shade feels most like rest. The paper beneath all of this was a smooth but slightly toothed surface, the kind that holds ink well and keeps a fine line sharp and true. Over time, the original drawings have aged honestly, gathering a faint warmth in their white spaces, a creaminess that was not there when the ink was first laid down. The marks themselves have not changed. The ink is permanent, exactly as dark as it ever was, holding every stroke precisely in place. But the paper has turned golden, gently and gradually, and this makes the trees appear older and more rested, like something that has been stored with care in a drawer full of quiet years when those drawings were reproduced for the printed books. Something softened a degree further. The printing process of the early editions carried a slight diffusion with it, so that the lines on the page were not absolutely sharp, but had a little ease around their edges. Millions of children and millions of adults have held those pages. The ink they read with their eyes was a translation of Shepard's original marks, made tender by the press and the paper. And still, the trees stood in it. Still, the wood held its quiet geography, its specific and familiar shapes. There are certain trees in those illustrations that have become something close to characters themselves. The tall pine near Pooh's door, drawn with long vertical strokes close together, conveying height without any particular drama. The wide oak where Owl keeps his letterbox, its trunk broad enough to feel ancient, its bark described with careful horizontal cross marks laid over vertical ones. The cluster of slender trees at the edge of a clearing, their trunks thin and close, drawn with almost spare strokes, upright and companionable. Each of these was placed by a thoughtful hand, set into position so that the characters who move among them have company and shelter, have a world that holds them on all sides. You are somewhere near that world now, drifted close to it in the late and settling hour. The trees stand in their ink and paper way, made of nothing more than a small pen drawn across a surface by a careful hand, and yet entirely believable in their rootedness. That believability is a gift that took almost no time to make and has lasted nearly a century. The marks are old, and the paper has grown warm, and the wood continues to stand in it, page after quiet page, as settled and as still as it has always been. The ink on those pages has settled into something very still. It dried long ago in a house in Sussex, in a room that smelled of wood and perhaps a little of coal smoke. And since that morning, it has not moved. It sits there now, faint and brown at the edges, the way old ink goes, having done its work completely and without any fuss. Milne wrote in a careful hand, not a hurried one. The letters lean forward just slightly, as if they are listening to something ahead of them. Each word was pressed gently into the surface, the nib of his pen holding just enough ink to carry a syllable, no more. You can see, in certain lights, the faint indentation beneath each stroke, a ghost of pressure left behind by a man sitting quietly at a desk, thinking of a bear. The margins are where things grow softer still. A margin is a place where the main story gives itself a little room to breathe. It is the field beside the path, the verge where small things can settle undisturbed. In those white borders beside Milne's neat columns of words, there are marks so small that you might pass over them entirely. And that is rather the point of them. Some are crossings out, single firm lines through a word that did not sit quite right. The crossed word is still legible underneath, which is its own kind of tenderness. He did not erase. He simply drew a line and moved forward, keeping the first thought visible, letting it remain as a record of how the story considered itself before it knew what it wanted to say. Others are small arrows, drawn to indicate a word moved to somewhere else, a sentence that needed to travel 2 lines up, or a paragraph that belonged, he realized, somewhere earlier. The arrows are brief and unhurried, just a stem and a pointed tip, nothing elaborate. They are a cartographer's marks on a very gentle map. And then, in the deepest corners of the margin, there are small things that have no clear purpose at all. A loop, traced perhaps while thinking, a soft swirl at the edge of a paragraph, where a pen was lifted and set down again without intention. These are the marks a mind makes when it is between one idea and the next, when it is simply present, simply warm, simply waiting. There is a particular pleasure in finding those marks. They belong to a moment of pause, a moment when Milne was not yet Milne the author, but simply a man in a chair, holding a pen, letting his hand move without direction. Those margins held him just as a room holds a person, surrounding the work on all sides with a kind of quiet. The paper itself has a texture you can imagine rather than touch. It is the kind of paper made with some weight and some intention, cream-colored now from all its years of holding still, with a slight roughness at the surface that would have caught the ink and kept it. Paper like that has a patience to it. It accepted what was offered and did not complain. Each page is numbered in a small hand at the top corner. The numbers are modest, placed there simply to keep order, to say, this follows that, and that follows this. And somewhere ahead of all of it is the part about honey, or about a very blustery day, or about a small house in the roots of a tree. The numbers do not know yet what they are numbering. They only know where they are in the sequence. There is something about the ink color itself that carries a particular kind of peace. It began black, or very close to it, with the dark certainty of fresh ink, and it has been softening ever since, moving slowly across the years into something closer to sepia, to the color of fallen leaves in November, to the color of old photographs of people standing very still in gardens. That fading is not a loss. It is the ink becoming part of its time, wearing its age gently, the way wood does, the way linen does, becoming more itself by becoming older. If you look at the manuscript long enough, you begin to notice the rhythm of it. Certain letters repeat in a way that becomes almost musical. The double O in Pooh appears many times per page, and each time it is slightly different, slightly more or slightly less open, depending on how Milne's hand was feeling in that particular moment. No two are exactly alike, and that is true of everything written by hand. That small, unrepeatable variation, that record of a living creature making marks. Some pages have more crossings out than others. These are the pages where the story was deciding something, where Pooh was about to say something and then did not quite say it that way, where Piglet was given a word and then given a different, better one. You can sometimes feel, looking at those pages, that the story was more alive in those moments, more uncertain, more genuinely searching for itself. Other pages are cleaner, almost uninterrupted. These are the pages where the story knew, where something had settled and the words came down in a continuous, unhurried stream, each one following the last without hesitation. Those pages have a serenity to them that the corrected ones do not quite match, though neither kind is better. They are simply different moods of the same mind. At the very bottom of one margin, on a page toward the middle of the manuscript, there is a small sketch. It is barely more than a few strokes, a curved back, two small ears, a simple roundness suggesting a bear sitting quietly with its knees drawn up. It is not shepherd's work. It is Milne's own, done quickly, done privately, done for no one in particular. It is the kind of drawing a person makes when they want to see the thing they are writing about, when the words alone are not quite enough, when a small shape at the edge of the work brings the whole thing a little closer. That small drawing has been sitting in the margin ever since. It has traveled wherever the manuscript traveled, held inside whatever folder or case carried it, seen only occasionally, in archive rooms with careful light and careful hands. It is so quiet there, so entirely at rest. Just a few strokes of ink that once, very briefly, were a thought moving through a man into a pen, and then into paper, and then into stillness, and the stillness is where it lives now. In a margin, beside a story, in a building somewhere, in a city that does not know it is there. The little bear in the margin has never needed to go anywhere. It was always already home. And so you find yourself drawn even closer now, past the open fields and the slow drift of illustrated clouds, past the murmur of leaves settling into one another. You are very near Pooh himself, nearer than you have been yet. You are so close, in fact, that the whole world of the wood has grown soft and wide around you, and all that remains in your gentle focus is this one small place, a curve, a shadow, a wash of pale amber deepening quietly into something cooler, something almost gray, where the light decides it will go no further. This is the shadow that lives beneath Pooh's round belly. It is not a dramatic thing. It does not announce itself. It simply sits there, curved and settled the way a held breath slowly becomes an exhaled one, folded into the underside of him as though it has always been there, as though it grew there naturally, like moss finding the underside of a stone. And in a sense, it did grow there. It was coaxed into being with water. Ernest Shepard, when he came to paint Pooh in those early colored editions, did not reach first for his brush. He sat with the image for a time. He knew the form already from years of drawing it, years of understanding exactly how much roundness a small bear could hold before he simply became a circle. Pooh was never quite a circle. He was rounder on one side than the other, ever so slightly, the way something truly full and contented always leans a little toward comfort. And Shepard understood that the belly needed shadow the same way a hill needs its own shade in the afternoon. Not for drama, only for depth, only to convince the eye that here is something soft and real that takes up space in the world. He mixed the pigment first with a great deal of water. More water than color, in fact. The ochre he used for Pooh's body was already pale and warm, something between ripe straw and a candle seen through closed fingers. And for the shadow, he introduced a touch of gray-blue into that warmth, letting them meet in the well of his palette and not quite become one thing. The resulting color had no name that anyone would write down. It was simply what it was: a haze, a suggestion. He wet the paper before the brush ever touched it. This is the secret that watercolor keeps from people who have never tried it. You do not paint onto dry paper if you want something to breathe. You lay a thin film of clean water first, and then you let the pigment find its own way into that wetness, spreading as it chooses, blooming outward in small, unpredictable directions, settling into pools where the paper dips. The paper Shepherd used was thick and had a slight texture to it, a very gentle tooth, and the water sat on its surface for a moment before sinking in. And in that moment, the brush arrived. The shadow under Pooh's belly moved the way slow water moves. It spread from the center of the curve outward, thinning as it went, losing certainty near the edges, becoming barely a whisper of tone before it gave way entirely to the warm body color surrounding it. You can see this if you look at the original paintings under good light. The shadow does not have a border. It has a graduation. It arrives, and then it quietly stops arriving. And somewhere in that transition is the precise moment Shepherd lifted the brush and let the water do the remaining work on its own. Pigment, when it dries on wet paper, does something patient and surprising. It migrates. It gathers toward the outer edge of a wash, leaving the center paler, or it settles into the texture of the paper and clings there in tiny deposits you can feel with a fingertip if you are gentle enough. Under Pooh's belly, the shadow dried in exactly this way, slightly darker near its own perimeter, slightly lighter at its heart, so that the whole thing seems to glow from within even as it darkens. It is a warmth inside a coolness, a small round room of light softly enclosed. And this, of all things, is what makes Pooh feel so inhabitable. He has interior light. He has a belly that seems full not just of fluff, as he would say, but of something almost luminous, something golden that the shadow cannot quite reach. The shadow tries in its gentle way. It cups the underside of him with both hands, but it cannot quite extinguish that warmth. And so the two things live together there, the glow and its companion shade, in a balance so easy it looks like it required no effort at all. It required enormous effort. Shepherd made many small studies before he arrived at that particular mixture of warm and cool. He understood that too much gray would make Pooh look cold, would suggest weather or illness. And Pooh is neither cold nor ill. He is simply well loved and well fed and sitting somewhere comfortable. The shadow had to read as softness, not weight. It had to be the kind of dark that makes makes you want to rest near it rather than feel any concern. It is a napping shadow, a dozing shadow. It belongs to a bear who has found a good spot and has no plans to leave it. The paper beneath all of this is still there under the paint, as it has always been. Thin and cream-toned, pressed into sheets decades before anyone thought to put a small bear on it. The paint sits in its fibers now, suspended, permanent, in the way that only things dried by time can be permanent. You could place your fingertip very softly against that shadow if the painting were before you, and you would feel the slight roughness of the page, the faint raised texture where the water dried and the pigment settled. You would feel nothing move. Everything has long since found its place and stayed. The shadow curves. The belly above it glows, warm and full. Pooh sits in his afternoon stillness, untroubled, content with the exact amount of everything he has. And the light falls the same way it has always fallen, from above and to one side, making that gentle crescent of shade that holds him from below. That tells you, without saying a word, that here is a real and rounded thing, resting, occupying its small and perfect space in the world. You are looking at something very small and something very whole all at once. A single illustration from a single page, and yet it holds something larger than itself. All around it, the white of the page waits, patient and unhurried, with no intention of pressing in. Notice how the image does not end. That is the first thing to let settle in you. It does not arrive at a wall, does not find itself stopped by a ruled border or a hard and definitive line. Instead, it thins. It breathes outward from its own center, growing progressively paler as it moves toward the surrounding white, until the two become indistinguishable, until the drawn world and the blank page have merged without any seam you could locate near the heart of the image, where Pooh sits in a familiar spot or walks a familiar path. The marks are deliberate. Ink dried into paper with purpose and quiet care. Color settled in layers, each one allowed to dry before the next was laid gently over it. But farther out, where the scene thins toward nothing, the marks become fewer. The pigment grows more dilute. The loaded brush gives way to a nearly dry one. And eventually the artist's hand simply lifts away. What remains is a trailing off, a gradual quieting, a world becoming its own soft echo. Ernest Shepard understood something about how a person holds a beloved thing in memory. He understood that we do not remember scenes from books the way photographs hold them, with every detail sharp and present right to the outer border. We remember impressions. We remember the warmth at the center of a thing, and and around that center, a peripheral softness we could not describe if asked. He drew that. He made illustrations that already resembled the memory of illustrations. He gave every child who opened these pages not just a picture, but the feeling of a very old and familiar thing, something known so deeply it had grown gentle. Each one of these images began as a blank expanse, a surface lighter than anything, holding no particular promise in either direction. Then came the tentative pencil, tracing possibilities, suggesting where a round form might sit, where a pair of small, sturdy legs might carry their bear toward honey or home. The pencil was patient with itself. It was unafraid to try and reconsider, unafraid to leave faint traces of earlier attempts that the ink would later speak over, and the watercolor would later soften into something that was never quite erasure and never quite presence, only a kind of palimpsest, a ghost of trying. After the pencil, the ink, deliberate, defining, giving structure to what had been explored. And after the ink, the watercolor, arriving in thin, transparent washes, lying over everything like glass over light. The ink still showed through. The pencil, very faintly, showed through beneath that. Layers of quiet attention, one resting on the next, each keeping its own particular silence while the others spoke, and then, last of all, the decision about where to stop. Or, more precisely, the decision not to stop at all, but to slow, to ease, to let the marks grow thin and then spare and then gone, leaving the surface to resume its own uninterrupted whiteness. That lifting away is not a leaving. It is a completion, not abandoned, released. This is the final thing this story offers you. Not a summary, not a conclusion, not a lesson that asks to be remembered in the morning. Only a fading, a deliberate and considered easing out into stillness, the same stillness in which this story was first imagined, the same stillness that holds all things that have truly come to rest. Your breathing is very slow now. You may have noticed it without meaning to. Your chest rises and falls without your direction. Your hands have found a heaviness that is not effort, but its opposite. You have arrived somewhere without having traveled, much as a room darkens toward evening, without anyone adjusting the light. Gradually, and then completely, without a moment you could name as the crossing. Think of the pale perimeter of one of these images as it reaches toward the page. Not a border, a threshold, a place where one kind of quiet opens into another. On one side, the quiet of a drawn world, small familiar figures in a landscape rendered with love and released with love. On the other, the quiet of the undreamed simple white that asks nothing and contains everything. You are moving toward that second kind of quiet now. The thoughts that accompanied you through the day are becoming sparse. The way marks become sparse near the outer reaches of a drawing. They are still there, gentle and unthreatening, but they are thinning. They have less weight. They make less demand. They are content to drift outward, to grow pale, to give way without resistance. A beloved story understands that it must end, not because ending is loss, but because rest was always the destination. Every small adventure in the 100 Acre Wood, every pot of honey found or missed, every slow gray afternoon by a window, every morning with low mist over the meadow, all of it was quietly practicing in its own unhurried way for this, for the close of the final page, for the image that fades to white and asks nothing more of anyone. Pooh's small round shape dissolving into pale gold at its outer reaches, losing its outlines to the surrounding light, becoming less a figure and more a warmth, less a drawing and more a feeling you carry somewhere behind the chest. The wood beyond him growing quieter, the familiar oaks and beeches thinning into suggestion, until suggestion itself fades into rest. That is what you are becoming now. Less a defined and bounded thing, more a warmth, a presence, a gentle continuation of something that began long before tonight. Everything will be there whenever morning arrives, patient and unchanged. Nothing between now and then will ask anything of you. You have nothing left to do but rest. The page is very white. The marks upon it have grown very few. There is just enough left to know that something was here, something warm and round and real, something made with care and offered across all this time with love. And then even that grows pale, and then even that rests. You are resting, fully and completely, in the quiet that gathers around every beloved thing and holds it, asking nothing in return. There is nothing left to follow, nothing to carry. Only this, the simple and complete stillness at the outermost reach of the image, where the drawing finally gives way to white, patient as paper, soft as the very last of the light.